Story by Mythic Tales of Africa. Part 2. The Mirror's Unrelenting Grip. The motel room was suffocating. The air felt thick, heavy, as though the walls themselves were closing in. The mirror sat on the table, its dark surface gleaming faintly in the dim light. It hadn't moved, but I could feel it watching, always watching. My reflection was there, but it wasn't mine. Its hollow eyes stared back at me, unblinking, as though it were waiting for something. I hadn't eaten in days. Sleep was no longer an option. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, faces twisted beyond recognition, their mouths stretched wide in silent screams. They whispered to me, voices that slipped through my mind like cold fingers, dragging me into their abyss. Each time I woke, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, until they became a constant presence. My name wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to them. I knew running wasn't enough. No matter how far I went, the mirror always found me. It was time to face the truth. I had to understand it. And to understand it, I had to return to where it all began. Booking a flight to Ghana felt surreal, as though I were retracing steps I'd never really left behind. The airport was crowded, but everything felt off. Faces blurred into one another, their outlines flickering like shadows caught in a faulty light. At one point, I thought I saw Kojo, the man who'd first brought the mirror to the camp, standing in the crowd. But when I blinked, he was gone. The flight itself was uneventful, but the nightmares returned as soon as I closed my eyes. I dreamt of the mirror. No, not just the mirror, but the world within it. A twisted place where shadows writhed like living things and faces loomed in the darkness. They spoke to me, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of despair. "You brought it back," they said. "You can't leave." When the plane landed in Accra, I was drenched in sweat, my hands trembling. The journey to the village where we had unearthed the mirror felt endless. The once familiar landscape now seemed alien, shrouded in an unspoken tension. Even the villagers were wary, their eyes darting nervously as I passed. They knew. Somehow, they knew what I had brought back with me. Finding Nana Kwame again was no easy task. His home was hidden deep within the forest, a small hut surrounded by ancient trees that seemed to lean in, their branches forming a natural barrier against the world outside. When I finally arrived, he greeted me with a look of profound sadness. "You should not have returned," he said. I unwrapped the mirror and placed it on the ground between us. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper. Nana Kwame recoiled, his hands shaking as he muttered a prayer. "This is no longer just an object. It is a vessel, a bridge between realms. You cannot hope to destroy it." "I don't care about destroying it," I said, my voice trembling. "I just want to break its hold on me." The shaman's eyes narrowed. "There is only one way to sever the bond. You must enter the mirror." The very thought made my stomach churn. Enter the mirror? It sounded impossible, suicidal even. But Nana Kwame insisted it was the only way to confront the spirits within and reclaim my soul. "The mirror is a gateway," he explained. "It feeds on fear, on despair. If you step into its world, you may be able to weaken its power. But beware. The spirits inside will not let you leave easily." He handed me a pouch of herbs and a small, intricately carved talisman. "These will protect you as much as they can, but once you're inside, you're on your own." The ritual began at midnight. Nana Kwame lit a fire and scattered the herbs into the flames, producing a thick, acrid smoke that filled the air. The mirror's surface rippled like water, and for the first time, I saw what lay beyond it. A twisted landscape of endless shadows, punctuated by flickering lights that resembled dying stars. "Step through," Nana Kwame said, his voice barely audible over the roaring fire. "And whatever you do, do not look back." My heart pounded as I reached out, my hand trembling as it touched the mirror's surface. It was cold, impossibly cold, and as I pushed through, the world around me dissolved into darkness. The first thing I noticed was the silence. It wasn't the absence of sound, but something deeper, a void that seemed to swallow even the sound of my breathing. The ground beneath my feet was smooth and reflective, like polished obsidian, stretching out into infinity. Above me, the sky, or what passed for a sky, was an endless expanse of black punctuated by faint, flickering lights that danced like distant flames. And then came the faces. They emerged slowly, their distorted features shimmering in the darkness like reflections on rippling water. Their eyes were hollow, glowing faintly, and their mouths moved in a silent scream. They circled me, their forms twisting and contorting as though they were made of smoke. I clutched the talisman Nana Kwame had given me, its warmth a small comfort in the oppressive cold. The spirits seemed wary of it, keeping their distance but never truly leaving. They whispered to me, their voices overlapping in a maddening chorus. "You don't belong here. You brought it to us. You will never leave." I stumbled forward, each step an act of defiance against the weight of their presence. In the distance, I saw something, a structure faintly illuminated by the flickering lights. It was a temple, ancient and crumbling, its walls covered in the same strange carvings as the mirror frame. Reaching the temple felt like an eternity. The spirits grew more aggressive as I approached, their forms solidifying into humanoid shapes with elongated limbs and sharp claw-like fingers. They lashed out, but the talisman held them at bay, its light flaring each time they came too close. Inside the temple, the air was even colder, the darkness even deeper. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested another mirror, larger, more ornate, and pulsing with a sickly, otherworldly light. This was the source, the heart of the curse. As I approached, the whispers grew deafening, a torrent of voices that threatened to overwhelm me. The spirits closed in, their faces twisting into expressions of rage and despair. They didn't want me to touch the mirror, they couldn't let me. With a surge of desperation, I reached out and placed my hand on the mirror. The world exploded into light and sound, a cacophony of screams and shattering glass. The spirits howled, their forms disintegrating into smoke as the mirror's surface cracked, splitting into 1,000 tiny fragments. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the forest, lying on the ground beside the mirror. Its surface was no longer dark and reflective. It was shattered, the pieces scattered across the earth like frozen tears. Nana Kwame stood over me, his expression one of both relief and sorrow. "You have weakened it," he said, "but its power is not gone. It will return." I didn't care, for now the whispers were silent, the shadows gone. I was free, or so I thought. Months passed, and I began to rebuild my life. I returned home, started working again, and tried to forget the nightmare I had lived through. But some things can never truly be forgotten. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, I felt it. A familiar presence, heavy and oppressive. When I turned around, my blood ran cold. There, sitting on my desk, was the mirror. Its surface was whole once more, darker than ever, and in its depths, I saw them, the faces, watching, waiting. The curse had not been broken. It had only just begun. This is the end, and please tell me how you feel about this story. Hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to please like and subscribe for more content like this.